Two helpless pups. Tossed like garbage into a freezing dumpster, no warmth, no hope, no reason to live. Their cries were too faint for most to hear, but one man did. A young police officer with a scarred heart, unknowingly about to change 3 lives forever. He didn't come looking for heroes. He became one. What happened next will break your heart, then rebuild it stronger. Before we begin, tap the like button, subscribe if you haven't, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a story where compassion becomes destiny. It was the kind of winter night that made even the streetlights look lonely. The town of Milton, Ohio, small, cold, and forgotten by time, lay beneath a heavy sky of slate gray. Snowflakes drifted through the air like tiny ghosts, and the wind slid down the brick walls of old tenements with a hiss that spoke of hollow homes and lost warmth. Officer Logan Hayes pulled his jacket tighter, collar up against the biting wind, his boots crunching along the frost-crusted sidewalk as he made his usual late-night patrol through the poorer side of town. At 28, Logan carried himself like a man older than his years. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with short, dark brown hair, often tousled by the wind, and sharp gray-blue eyes that seemed to always be scanning for something. Danger, perhaps, or meaning. His uniform, though neat, bore the faint scuffs of someone who didn't mind getting his hands dirty. There was a quiet gravity to him, the kind that made people lower their voices in his presence, not out of fear, but respect. Beneath that composed exterior, though, Logan wore the weight of a grief that never healed. His younger brother Micah had died 3 years ago during his second deployment overseas. Micah had been the sunshine to Logan's shadow, smaller in stature, with freckles and a crooked smile, always chasing animals, always dreaming up rescue shelters and names for puppies they didn't yet have. When the news came, something in Logan fractured. He didn't cry, not even at the funeral. Instead, he kept patrolling. He worked more shifts. He filled his silence with duty. But that night, something changed. As he passed the old Wickley's bakery, its windows long boarded, its neon sign shattered and buzzing with frost, a faint, pitiful sound stopped him mid-step. It wasn't a shout or a moan. It was smaller than that, a whimper, muffled, weak, the kind of sound only someone listening would catch. Logan froze, his breath curling into the cold like smoke. He tilted his head, then stepped cautiously into the narrow alley beside the bakery. Trash bins lined the wall, most overflowing with bags stiffened by the freeze. He followed the sound, heartbeat rising. There, behind the last green dumpster, he saw a black garbage bag half opened. The whimper came again. Lowering himself slowly, Logan reached for the bag, heart thudding. He peeled it open and recoiled slightly at the smell, not rot, but something sharp and sickly. Then his eyes locked on the contents. 2 tiny figures curled into each other. Puppies. German shepherds no more than 4 weeks old, thin as twigs, their ribs visible beneath patchy fur. One had deep amber eyes that met Logan's as it let out another shaky cry. The other lay still, eyes half closed, sides rising and falling in shallow breaths. They were wrapped in nothing but a torn dish towel, barely enough to block the wind. Logan didn't hesitate. He pulled off his own thick patrol jacket, bundled the pups inside, and cradled them against his chest. "You're okay now," he murmured, voice hoarse. "I've got you." The heat from his body seeped into them slowly. One squirmed, a tiny tongue brushing against his glove. Logan blinked hard. He wasn't sure if it was the cold or something deeper that made his throat tighten. He started walking fast, past the flickering street lamp, past the shell of a laundromat, toward his patrol SUV. His boots slipped on the icy curb, but he didn't stop. The pups whimpered again, and his grip tightened. As he opened the passenger door and gently laid them across his spare fleece blanket, a memory hit him so suddenly he gasped. Micah, age 11, holding a soaked kitten they'd rescued from a storm drain. "We should build a place, you know, like a hotel but for animals, with warm floors and bacon every morning." Logan smiled, then wiped at his eyes. "I'm late, Micah," he whispered, starting the engine, "but maybe I'm not too late." As the heater whirred to life, casting a soft hum through the cab, Logan reached for the radio and paused. This wasn't a crime. There'd be no paperwork, no arrest. Just life, barely holding on, waiting for someone to care. "I'm taking a detour," he said quietly to himself, and made a sharp turn onto 5th Street toward Milton Veterinary Emergency. The clinic lights were harsh and bright, humming faintly above the sterile linoleum floor. Logan sat hunched on a metal bench inside Milton Veterinary Emergency, his jacket damp, boots tracking in salt and slush from the icy streets outside. In the examination room, the two pups lay on a heating pad beneath the focused gaze of Dr. Jenna Rourke, the town's only emergency veterinarian. Jenna was in her mid-30s, with a tall, lean frame and a natural, no-nonsense posture shaped by long hours on her feet. Her auburn curls were tied back beneath a faded scrub cap, and her blue eyes held the alert sharpness of someone who had seen both miracles and heartbreak in equal measure. She rarely smiled, but when she did, it was genuine, often reserved for her patients more than people. She moved with quiet efficiency, checking pulses, listening to heartbeats, gently lifting each pup's paw with practiced care. After several minutes, she stood upright, stripping off her gloves with a snap. "They're lucky," she said, glancing at Logan. "More than lucky, really. No fractures, no internal bleeding, severe hypothermia and malnourishment, but with round-the-clock care and feeding, they'll survive." Logan let out a slow breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "And the smaller one?" "Echo?" she asked, glancing down. He blinked. "I didn't tell you their names. You murmured it while holding the little one. I have sharp ears." She smirked slightly. "He's weaker, for sure. Slower heartbeat, less responsive, but still fighting. Keep him warm, feed every 3 hours. We'll get you a schedule." Logan nodded, his jaw tight. "I'll do it." By the time he carried them back to his patrol SUV, the first sliver of morning had begun to chase the black out of the sky. Snow still fell, but softer now, gentler, as though the world had exhaled with him. At home, he laid the pups on a thick flannel blanket by the hearth, started the fire, and turned up the thermostat. His living room wasn't large, just a simple couch, a dusty bookshelf, and an old record player Micah had salvaged years ago. But tonight, it felt more like a shelter than it ever had. He fetched the supplies Dr. Rourke had packed: powdered formula, 2 small bottles, antiseptic wipes. Carefully, he warmed the milk on the stove and filled the first bottle. Axel, the bigger pup, licked eagerly, gripping the nipple with surprising strength. Echo needed more coaxing. Logan cradled him in the crook of his arm, gently guiding the bottle into his mouth until the tiny tongue flicked forward. A breath of relief escaped Logan's lips. He fed them both, wiped them clean, then wrapped them in a towel and sat back against the couch. The fire crackled. Axel shifted, curling instinctively toward the heat. Echo nestled in next to him, letting out a soft sound, something between a sigh and a murmur. Logan leaned in, brushing a finger across the top of their heads. "Axel," he whispered to the larger one, "you're bold. You don't wait for permission. That's your name now." He turned to the smaller one. "Echo. You're the quiet call that never leaves." A knock on the door broke the silence. Logan glanced at the clock. 7:10 a.m. He rose and opened the door to find Loretta Monroe, his neighbor from 2 houses down. She stood bundled in a long brown coat and a bright red scarf that had clearly been hand-knitted, holding a ceramic mug in one gloved hand. Her face, lined but warm, bore the expression of a woman who had seen her fair share of sunrises and disappointments, and chosen kindness anyway. "Logan Hayes," she said crisply. "If you don't have a dog in there, then you've got the ghost of one, because something's yapping through my walls." He smiled tiredly. "Come in, Loretta." She stepped inside, brushing snow off her boots. "Smells like burnt firewood and trouble." Then her eyes fell on the 2 puppies sleeping beside the hearth, bundled in towels. Her expression softened. "Oh." Logan explained. The alley, the dumpster, the emergency clinic. Loretta lowered herself carefully onto the rug beside them, her knees creaking. "German shepherds," she murmured. "My first dog was a shepherd, Benny. Got him when I was 23. He was lean and mean and smelled like cheese half the time, but he saved my life." Logan tilted his head. "How?" She looked into the fire, her voice lowering. "Was teaching night classes back then. Lived in a walk-up near 7th and Maple. One night I came home and found the door cracked. Benny went stiff. Didn't bark, just charged. Found a man in the kitchen holding a knife. Benny went for his wrist. I ran. Called the cops from a payphone. He got a scar. Benny got a limp. And I never doubted a dog's loyalty again." Logan watched her gently run her fingers along Axel's ear. "You've got a good heart, Hayes. These two wouldn't be here if you hadn't stopped." He didn't answer, just watched the flames. For a moment, there was no sound but the faint ticking of the old clock on the mantel and the occasional pop of burning wood. Loretta stood slowly, brushing off her knees. "You planning to keep them?" "I don't know," he said. "I'll foster them, just until I find someone." She gave him a knowing look. "You've already named them. That's the first trap." He chuckled. "Noted." She reached the door, then turned back. "Let me bring over some old toys and a hot water bottle later. Benny had one when he was sick. Might help Echo rest easier." Logan nodded. "Thanks, Loretta." That evening, with snow still falling in hushed layers across the porch, Logan sat beside the hearth again. Axel had managed to stand, wobbly but upright, while Echo remained curled tightly, eyes occasionally fluttering open. Logan leaned back against the couch, sipping from a chipped mug of black coffee. His eyes wandered to the photo frame above the mantel. Micah, grinning in fatigues, holding up a cardboard sign at boot camp. "Save them all." Logan hadn't looked at it in months. He reached over and gently placed a hand on Echo's side, feeling the steady rise and fall. "I'm starting small," he said softly. 3 weeks passed in the soft cadence of snow and bottle feedings. Winter gripped Milton tighter, layering the town in silence and white, but inside Logan's house warmth had made a quiet return. The fire still burned low in the hearth most nights, and the soft thumps of puppy paws had begun to echo through the wooden floorboards. Axel and Echo had grown, still small, but no longer frail. Their coats had thickened, and their eyes shone with alert curiosity. It was early morning when Logan noticed something strange. He stood in the backyard, breath curling in the crisp air, holding a leather glove in one hand. Axel sat on the porch, ears perked, eyes locked. Echo stood beside Logan's feet, nose twitching at the scent of fresh frost. Without a word, Logan lifted his hand and gestured. A simple, firm, downward motion he'd seen canine handlers use. Echo dropped instantly to the ground. He frowned. He hadn't trained that, not once. "Up," he said cautiously, raising his palm. Echo rose. Logan narrowed his eyes, glanced at Axel. "Stay," he said. Axel didn't budge, still watching the glove. Logan tossed it 10 feet away into a snowbank. Axel bolted, nose low, body weaving through the yard like a predator. He didn't pause or sniff at the wind. He went straight to the glove and returned with it between his teeth, tail swishing with restrained energy. Inside, Logan sat on the floor with his laptop and began researching instinctual behavior in shepherds. Most of what he read made sense. This breed was brilliant, intuitive, designed for work. But these pups had never been taught commands, never seen a training field, and yet they responded like they'd done it before. It gnawed at him. That afternoon, Logan pulled his jacket on and decided to take a walk with them through Sherman Park, a quiet space near the edge of town where snow-blanketed trails wound through pines and faded picnic benches. As they walked, Axel tugged forward, occasionally sniffing a buried wrapper or scurrying squirrel trail. Echo stuck close, always behind Logan's left foot, ears twitching with each distant sound. A woman watched them from the far end of the park trail. She was tall and athletic, with sharp cheekbones, a braided ponytail, and a maroon sheriff's department jacket. Her stance was easy but measured, the stance of someone trained to assess before acting. This was Officer Maddie Grant, 31, a K-9 unit handler with the County Sheriff's Department. Known for her calm under pressure and direct demeanor, Maddie was respected among peers but had few close friends, something she never apologized for. Years earlier, she had lost her own K-9 partner in a high-profile raid gone wrong, and since then, she'd been slow to connect with others, human or animal. As Logan passed, she called out, "Those yours?" He slowed, then nodded. "Fostered, sort of." She knelt slightly. "German shepherds?" "Rescued them from a dumpster. Didn't think they'd make it." Maddie whistled low, then clapped softly. Echo approached her, slow and cautious, sniffed her glove, then sat. Axel trotted up behind, tail raised, eyes focused. "Mind if I try something?" Maddie asked. "Go ahead." She stepped back and issued a command in German. "Sitz." Axel obeyed immediately. Echo hesitated, then mimicked. Maddie raised her brow. "You taught them Schutzhund cues?" "No," Logan said, stunned. Maddie looked at him thoughtfully. "These aren't just house pets. Somebody trained them, or they were bred for work. You should bring them in. Get them evaluated." Logan hesitated. "That's what I was thinking." Back home, he sat down at his kitchen table, boots kicked off, both pups sprawled nearby. He dialed the Milton K-9 Regional Training Facility, a modest but respected program just outside town. After a few rings, a gravelly voice answered. "K-9 East. This is Sergeant Phelps." Logan introduced himself and briefly explained what had happened. Rescued shepherd pups, strange behavioral cues, untrained responses. Phelps grunted. "Bring them in next week. We'll run basic aptitude. No guarantees. Some dogs just mimic." Logan agreed to the appointment. He leaned back in his chair, eyes on the fireplace. The flames danced with that same flicker of something he couldn't name. Purpose, maybe. That night he received a letter in the mail. Cream envelope, no return address. The handwriting was clean and angular. He opened it slowly. Inside, a single sheet folded in half, the ink black and bold. "The annual Milton Police Memorial Service will be held at City Hall, February 2nd, 5:00 p.m. This year we honor Officer Robert Garrison and the legacy he left behind." Logan sat very still. Officer Garrison, his old mentor, the man who'd trained him when he was just a green-eyed rookie. Garrison had been a towering presence both physically and in spirit. Balding, barrel-chested, and quick to laugh, he was the first to tell Logan that faith wasn't weakness, and that sometimes the strangest moments were where the truth was hiding. Garrison had been killed during a warehouse bust 2 years ago. Wrong place, wrong time, no backup. Logan had never forgiven himself for not being there. They'd had plans that night to meet for a beer. Logan had canceled. He touched the bottom of the letter. "Sometimes, it's the things that don't make sense that matter the most. RG." He'd said that once, after Logan botched a training exercise and blamed his own instincts. Axel stirred, then padded over and lay his head on Logan's knee. Echo followed a second later, curling into the crook of Logan's foot like a shadow. Logan closed his eyes. Maybe this wasn't just rescue. Maybe this was something finding its way back to him. The morning frost clung to the windshields like brittle lace as Logan pulled into the gravel lot of Milton K-9 Regional Training Facility. The sun hadn't yet risen above the tree line, casting long shadows across the field behind the main building. A row of kennels stretched alongside a training warehouse where plumes of breath hovered like mist above the waiting handlers and their dogs. Logan stepped out, adjusting his coat, the leash in each hand taut with the energy of the 2 shepherds beside him. Axel, now nearly 6 months old, walked with a soldier's pace. Head high, steps firm, ears forward. Echo, smaller still, stuck closer to Logan's left leg, his gait quiet, alert, and fluid. They had grown fast, their frames filling in with lean muscle and their fur developing the rich black and tan sheen classic to their breed. But it wasn't just their looks that turned heads as Logan walked past the others. It was the way they moved, attentive and controlled, as if every nerve was attuned to purpose. Inside the warehouse, Sergeant Ray Phelps waited near a row of orange cones and stacked crates. A barrel-chested man in his early 50s with a silver buzz cut and a voice like gravel over ice, Phelps had spent decades in the canine field. His eyes were sharp, appraising, but not unkind. He wore a heavy green tactical jacket, tan pants, and fingerless gloves, and moved with a no-nonsense authority that made even the most seasoned dogs fall silent. "You're Logan Hayes?" he asked, barely glancing at the clipboard in his hand. "Yes, sir." "These the two pups you mentioned?" Logan nodded. "Axel and Echo." Phelps whistled low. "They're young, but all right, let's see what they've got. You've handled dogs before?" "Some, in patrol. Not like this." Phelps grunted. "Don't worry, if they're good, they'll show it." They started with a basic obedience test. Phelps called out commands while Logan repeated them with subtle gestures. Axel responded with eagerness, sitting, staying, even pivoting with near-perfect alignment. Echo, while slightly slower, mirrored Logan's movements as if reading his breath. A murmur ran through the watching handlers. One woman leaned toward her partner and whispered, "That little one's reading him like a book." Then came the detection test. "Okay," Phelps said, raising his voice to the group. "We've got a mock warehouse sweep set up in Zone C. 3 target scents, training-grade narcotics, accelerants, and residue from a stolen firearm. 1 find each. Let's see who earns their breakfast." Each handler took a turn. The dogs performed admirably, some faster, some more methodical, but none of them found more than one object. When it was Logan's turn, he hesitated. "They've never been through this, not even once." Phelps nodded. "That's the point." Logan unclipped Echo's lead first. The small shepherd stepped forward, ears twitching. As soon as the warehouse door swung open, Echo paused, sniffed once, then veered sharply left, past the decoy boxes and clean crates. He padded to a stack of dusty pallets in the far corner, paused, then sat with eerie precision. Logan approached and gently lifted a small brown envelope taped beneath a wooden plank. Phelps squinted. "That's real heroin residue. How in hell?" Before Logan could answer, Axel pulled against his lead, sniffing the air. Logan followed as Axel led him outside, past the parking lot, and across the back gravel to a line of abandoned patrol cars used for simulations. Axel paused beside the second sedan, sniffed at the wheel well, then barked once. Logan crouched and reached into the wheel arch, pulling out a set of keys inside a weathered plastic bag. Phelps' voice behind him was tight with surprise. "That vehicle was part of a theft drill 2 weeks ago. We never found the props. That key was still logged as missing." Logan turned slowly. "They weren't trained. Not by me." Phelps stared at him, then the dogs. "Hayes, this is something else. I want them in the next training cycle. No debate." Logan looked down at the 2 dogs, both sitting now, tails still, waiting for his cue. He nodded. Back home that afternoon, Logan prepared dinner for the pups, chopped chicken, rice, and kibble, and stood by the sink, watching snow begin to fall again across the neighborhood. The day had brought a swell of pride he hadn't felt in a long time. Not for a badge, not for duty, but for them, for Axel and Echo. The phone rang. He wiped his hands and answered. "Hayes." A pause, then a gravel-thin voice. "Logan, it's me." He froze. The voice continued. "Your father." Logan gripped the edge of the counter. "I know I don't have the right to call, but I'm sick, son. Cancer. Stage 4. They gave me weeks. I just wanted to see you. Once. Say something." Silence sat heavy. "I live upstate now, in Athens. I'm not asking for anything, Logan. I just wanted to hear your voice." Logan swallowed. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just, if you want to come, I'll be here. If not, I understand." Click. Logan stood for a long time in the dim kitchen, snow pressing quietly against the windows. His father, the man who had walked out on him and Micah when they were just boys, leaving behind a note and an empty bank account, was still alive. Barely. He turned around and found Echo sitting silently in the doorway, eyes on him. Axel stood just behind, tail low, sensing the shift in energy. Logan exhaled. He didn't know if forgiveness was something he could give, but now, with two lives that had once been thrown away curled up safely at his feet, he realized the path toward it had already begun. The badge shimmered faintly under the fluorescence as Logan clipped it to his uniform, the early morning sun barely peeking through the frosted glass panes of Milton Police Department. The calendar on the wall marked 12 months since Axel and Echo first stepped paw into the world beyond a dumpster. Now they stood tall, lean, and disciplined, two fully certified K-9 officers officially registered with the department. Echo, slightly smaller but lightning sharp, wore a custom-fit tactical vest marked K-9 Milton Unit across the side. His eyes, dark and always searching, rarely left Logan's left hand waiting for a signal, a command, a breath. He moved like a whisper through shadows, his gait fluid and precise. Axel had grown into a larger, more assertive frame. His energy was direct, bold, often described by trainers as pure working instinct. He belonged now to Officer Maddie Grant, Logan's longtime colleague and quiet supporter. Maddie had been the only one Logan trusted enough to hand over Axel, and even then, it had taken months of training and bonding for the match to feel right. Maddie stood near the patrol car, adjusting Axel's vest. At 31, she carried herself with a no-nonsense professionalism that some mistook for coldness. But Logan knew better. She was 5'8", lean but strong, with striking green eyes and dark brown hair always pulled into a low braid. Beneath the sharp exterior was someone who never forgot loss, and never let anyone see it either. Losing her first K-9 had hollowed something in her that only Axel seemed to have begun to restore. "Shift starts in 5, she said, glancing toward Logan as she clipped Axel's leash. Logan nodded, patting Echo's side. "You two ready?" Axel responded with a tail thump. Echo merely stared, calm and still. Their units parted ways, Maddie heading toward the south end of town, Logan toward Main Street with Echo in the back of the cruiser. The radio crackled with static and chatter, but Logan kept it low, fingers drumming against the wheel as he glanced at Echo through the rearview mirror. "You see everything," he said aloud. Echo blinked slowly, as if in agreement. That afternoon, a call came through. Burglary in progress, Golden Touch. Jewelry, Main and 3rd. Suspect still on site, possible armed. Logan responded with Echo. The shop was already in chaos. Shattered glass, the whine of an alarm, a store clerk trembling behind the counter. The suspect had fled through the back alley, surveillance showing a man in a dark hoodie carrying a bag and potentially a blade. Logan didn't hesitate. He clipped Echo's lead, whispered, "Track," and the shepherd sprang forward, nose to the ground, weaving through the tight alley behind the store. The scent was strong. Echo pulled sharply, rounding the corner of a chain-link fence into an open construction lot. Piles of metal, plywood, and debris provided dozens of places to hide. Logan scanned the area, hand on his holster, heart thudding. Echo suddenly froze. Ears up, tail stiff, gaze locked on a tall wooden crate. Logan advanced slowly. "Show me," he whispered. Echo crept forward, silent as wind, then growled low, barely audible. Logan raised his voice. "Police! Come out with your hands visible!" A figure lunged. Logan's world narrowed. The man came from the left, not the crate, his hoodie zipped halfway, face partially masked, glint of a knife catching light. Logan turned too late, the blade already arcing. Echo launched. In one swift blur of tan and black, Echo hurled himself between Logan and the attacker. The knife scraped harmlessly against Echo's vest, sending the dog tumbling, but not down. He rebounded instantly, teeth bared, forcing the man to the ground with a fierce bark. Logan subdued the suspect with practiced speed, cuffing him as Echo stood firm, hackles raised but eyes clear. Later, back at the station, Logan sat on the bench outside the exam room as the department vet checked Echo for injuries. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from something deeper, gratitude. Echo had taken a hit meant for him. The door opened. Maddie stepped out, Axel by her side. "He okay?" she asked, voice lower than usual. "Bruised, nothing deep." Logan exhaled. "He saved my life." Maddie looked down at Echo, then back at Logan. "I guess they were never just dogs." "No," he said. "They never were." Maddie hesitated. "You know, I didn't say anything before, but I think about you sometimes." Logan turned slowly. "Yeah?" She shrugged, eyes on the floor. "You're steady, even when things fall apart." He gave a small, tired smile. "You've seen me fall apart." She met his gaze. "But you still show up. That counts." He didn't respond at first, then gently, "I don't know if I have space for anything real, not yet." "I'm not asking for anything real," she said softly. "Just maybe a start." That night, Logan returned home, Echo asleep beside the hearth, Axel sprawled across a borrowed dog bed Loretta had dropped off days earlier. The old woman had visited again that morning, bringing fresh biscuits and a thermos of soup. Her advice, unsolicited as always, lingered in his mind. You can carry grief or let it carry you, but you don't get to do both. He looked down at Echo, bandaged, calm, dreaming. Maybe Loretta was right. The drive to Athens was long and quiet, with winter clinging stubbornly to the highways. Logan sat behind the wheel of his black patrol SUV, a coffee cooling in the cup holder, and Echo curled in the back seat beside Axel. Snow had started to fall lightly, catching in the bare trees that lined the route like frozen fingers reaching upward. The landscape passed in tones of gray and white, echoing the heaviness in his chest. He hadn't spoken to his father in nearly 2 decades. Not since the night the man vanished without a word, leaving Logan, a teenager then, to raise Micah alone. Their mother had already passed, cancer chewing through her body while bills piled up and Logan worked part-time at a mechanic's garage to keep the heat running. And one morning, his father's truck was gone. So was he. Now, a call from a number he almost didn't answer had brought Logan here. The hospice sat at the edge of town, a small stone building with ivy that hadn't seen green in months. Inside, warmth and antiseptic mingled beneath the hum of machines and the shuffling of nurses. Logan checked in at the front desk, and a short woman in her 50s with a bun of gray hair and a tired but kind expression led him down the hallway. Nurse Hattie wore thick glasses and comfortable sneakers, her manner gentle but direct. A woman who had learned long ago to stay soft without becoming breakable. "He's been awake most of the morning," she said quietly, "more alert than usual. He's been waiting for you." Logan nodded, unable to form words. The room was dimly lit, pale green curtains drawn halfway. A figure lay propped against the pillows, a man reduced to almost half the size Logan remembered. Hollow cheeks, translucent skin stretched thin over knobby bones, but the same hazel eyes. Cloudier now, but still unmistakable. "Logan!" The voice cracked like dry bark. "You came!" Logan stepped in, Echo and Axel padding silently behind him. The moment the dogs entered, the old man blinked in astonishment. They're beautiful," he whispered. "You kept them?" "I rescued them," Logan said, voice low, "same way I rescued myself." His father coughed lightly, then motioned toward the chair beside the bed. Logan sat. "I didn't want to go like this without seeing you," the man said, voice gravel thin. "There's so much I never said, so much I got wrong." Logan's hands curled together. "Why?" A long silence passed. The man looked up at the ceiling. "After your mother died, I broke. I blamed myself. She never saw a doctor early on because I kept telling her it was nothing. We couldn't afford the tests. I told her we'd get to it later. Later never came. Logan's jaw tightened. I started drinking. Every night. Not the bar type, just alone. I was afraid I'd hurt you and Micah. The anger, the weight of it. I thought I was becoming dangerous. So you left. I did. I left one night thinking I'd never come back. I drove until I was nearly out of gas, had a gun with me. He looked at Logan now, eyes rimmed with tears. I sat on the edge of a bridge outside Dayton for 2 hours. Then a cop pulled over. Didn't say anything. Just gave me a thermos of coffee and sat next to me. Didn't try to stop me, just waited. And I didn't jump. Logan didn't speak. I wanted to call, 1,000 times, but I figured you'd already buried me in your heart. Logan looked at his hands. I did. I deserve that. The room fell into a heavy stillness. Axel came to the bedside, resting his chin on the mattress. The man smiled faintly. This one. He reminds me of your mom's old dog, Max. Remember? Logan nodded slowly. Then Echo moved to the man's side as well, laying his head across the blanket gently. His father reached a trembling hand and touched Echo's head. This one, there's something in his eyes, like he knows. Logan swallowed hard. I see now, these dogs. They aren't just animals, they're messengers. You found them the way I wanted to be found. Logan's breath caught. I don't expect you to forgive me, the man whispered, but I needed you to know I never stopped loving you. There were no grand gestures, no dramatic music, just Logan, leaning forward, gripping the frail hand of a man who had once carried him on his shoulders, and whispering, I forgive you, Dad. Later that week, back in Milton, Logan noticed something different in Echo's gait. It was subtle, barely a limp, more a stiffness in the rear right leg. But Logan knew Echo like he knew his own reflection, and he knew pain when he saw it. He brought Echo to Dr. Jenna Rourke, the town's vet. Jenna studied the x-rays in silence, her auburn curls pulled into a loose ponytail. She wore dark-rimmed glasses today and had that usual calm about her that Logan had come to rely on. It's early-onset joint stress, she said finally, probably from the way he moves, low, cautious, always on alert. It's not critical, but you'll need to reduce high-impact activity. No leaping walls, no long sprints. Logan rubbed Echo's ear as the dog sat quietly beside him. He's still got plenty of work in him, Jenna added gently, just not the dangerous kind. Logan gave a slow nod. He saved my life. I don't need him to do it again. I just want him to stay. Jenna smiled faintly, then let him rest when he needs to. Back home that night, Logan sat by the fire. Echo lay at his feet, head resting on Logan's boot, eyes closed but aware. Axel watched from the far corner, alert but at ease. Outside, snow began to fall again, blanketing the town in quiet. Logan looked down at his partner, the quiet one, the gentle one, the shadow who had walked with him from grief into hope, and whispered, You've done enough. Now I'll guard you. The wind that swept through the east end of Milton that night was sharp and relentless, the kind that scraped through winter coats and turned breath into brittle clouds. The industrial district lay hushed in the dark, warehouses crouched like sleeping beasts, each holding secrets between rusted bolts and padlocked doors. Inside one such building, the red glow of a dying emergency light flickered against metal walls, casting shadows across Logan's blood-smeared face. He lay on the concrete floor of an abandoned refrigeration warehouse, his shoulder pinned beneath a broken shelf and his right hand clamped to the wound on his thigh. His radio had been smashed in the scuffle. The ambush came fast, no warning, no time to react. What was supposed to be a joint operation with state officers to dismantle a trafficking ring turned into chaos when half the suspects slipped through an unguarded back door. Logan followed solo. It was a trap. The only thing working now was the emergency beacon clipped to his vest and Echo's GPS tracker. Back at the perimeter, Echo sat in Maddie's cruiser, panting, tense. When Logan hadn't checked in after 5 minutes, she'd known something was wrong. Maddie, wrapped in tactical gear and gripping Axel's leash, gave the order to breach. The team moved fast, voices crisp over comms. But Echo was already pawing at the door, restless. "Let him go," Maddie said, unlocking the door. "Track Logan. Go!" Echo sprang out like a dart, nose low, body disappearing into the shadows. The GPS on his collar began pinging steadily on Maddie's tablet. She followed with Axel, flanked by 2 officers. Detective Nolan, a wiry man in his 40s with deep-set eyes and a history of trust issues, and Officer Kim Tran, a petite, quiet woman in her early 30s known for her photographic memory and nerves of steel. Inside the warehouse, the cold clawed at Logan's limbs. He was shivering uncontrollably now. The blood loss made things worse. His fingers trembled as he pulled the flare from his belt, but he couldn't get it to spark. He closed his eyes. If Echo didn't find him soon... A howl cut through the dark. Not a bark. A sound ancient, wild, defiant. A cry that shattered silence and surged through metal walls like thunder. Echo's voice. Logan managed a weak smile. "There you are, buddy." Minutes later, Echo appeared at the broken door, eyes locked on Logan. He padded forward, carefully maneuvering through debris. Once beside him, the dog began barking in sharp, patterned bursts. 4 fast, 2 slow. The code they'd trained. Officer down, immediate aid required. Outside, Maddie heard the pattern and relayed over comms. "Echo's got him! Cold storage unit, north end, move!" Axel growled low, his ears twitching. He veered suddenly to the left, dragging Maddie toward a rusted trapdoor half covered by crates. Axel's paw scratched against it frantically. Maddie shined her flashlight. A lock. She shot it off. Below, in the musty, cramped basement, they found 5 shivering figures. 3 women, 2 teenagers, wrapped in soiled blankets and gagged. Victims. Alive. Logan, barely conscious, was pulled out minutes later on a stretcher. His lips were pale, but his eyes found Echo's form beside him, tail thumping once against the concrete before everything went dark. 2 days later, the hospital room was quiet except for the gentle beeping of monitors and the soft whisper of snow tapping the window. Logan lay in a sling, thigh wrapped tight, a faint bruise along his jaw. He stirred when the door creaked open. Maddie stepped in first, in civilian clothes, holding 2 styrofoam cups. "Black. No sugar," she said, offering one. "Bless you," Logan rasped, voice rough. She sat at the edge of the bed. "You were lucky. Inch to the left, and we'd be burying you next to your mentor." Logan smiled faintly. "Echo?" "He's resting. Exhausted, but fine. Axel, too. They both did exactly what we trained them for." There was a pause. Logan broke the silence. "They were never just rescues. You were right." Maddie looked at him, something unreadable in her expression. "Neither were you." That evening, after being discharged, Logan returned home to a house dim with silence. The fire had long gone out. Axel lay sprawled on the rug, head on his paws. Echo, still moving a little stiffly, perked up when Logan entered. Logan knelt down, embracing him without a word. Then he noticed something unusual. The porch light was on. He stepped out and saw a package on the stoop. No address, just a cream envelope tucked inside. The handwriting was unmistakable. Loretta's. Hands suddenly cold, Logan carried it inside, sat, and opened the note. "Logan, if you're reading this, I'm probably already gone. I never was good at long goodbyes, and God knows you're worse at accepting them. I want you to know, those 2 dogs? I saw them before you did. That day you found them, I saw their shadows in my dream the night before. Call it old woman nonsense, but I believe your brother sent them. If you ever doubted why they came to you, don't. Keep them. Not because they're canines, because they're family. L." Tears slipped down Logan's cheeks silently. No sobbing, just the quiet collapse of something heavy and old, finally let go. Later, as snow thickened beyond the windows and fire returned to the hearth, Echo curled beside his partner once again. Logan whispered, "We still have work to do, don't we?" Echo didn't respond, but his eyes, those ever-watchful eyes, never left him. Sunlight poured through the tall windows of Milton's newly renovated Civic Hall, illuminating the polished wood floors and catching in the brass trim of police uniforms neatly lined in rows. Outside, spring stretched over the town with tentative warmth, buds on trees, the scent of thawed soil, and the lingering breath of winter still curling in shaded corners. Inside, all eyes were on the two German shepherds sitting calmly on either side of the small stage. Axel sat tall, ever vigilant, his posture as precise as a soldier's. Echo lay beside Logan, his front legs stretched out and his chin resting near Logan's polished dress shoes, tail sweeping the floor once with a soft rhythm. Both wore custom-fitted black vests, the words Milton K-9 Unit, Honor Guard, stitched in silver thread across their sides. Logan stood at the podium, the engraved town seal shining behind him. He was in full uniform, but it was the quiet steadiness in his voice, not the badge on his chest, that held the room. "1 year ago," he began, "I pulled 2 lives from a dumpster. They were small, cold, and barely breathing. I didn't know what I was saving, or if I could save anything at all." He glanced down at Echo, who blinked once as if understanding. "But I've come to believe that sometimes when you try to rescue something, it rescues you back. Axel and Echo didn't just become working dogs. They became my compass. They gave me something to believe in again." The room was quiet. Even the rustle of the flags behind him seemed to still. "This town," Logan continued, "has seen its share of loss, but today we honor what can rise from that. And with that spirit, I'm proud to announce the official opening of Echo Shelter, a canine training and rehabilitation center dedicated to second chances, for dogs, for people, for those left behind." Applause rose around the hall, firm and sustained. Mayor Stanton, broad-shouldered with a deep voice made for parades, stepped forward. With a solemn nod, he awarded Echo and Axel each a Medal of Valor, their names engraved in silver on thick navy ribbons. Axel let out a single bark, almost ceremonial. Echo wagged his tail and leaned into Logan's leg. After the ceremony, Logan stepped outside, the sunshine bright on his face. Maddie waited by the cruiser, her dark braid tucked beneath a soft gray cap. She wore jeans and a simple black shirt, but her eyes carried the same quiet strength that had once caught Logan off guard and now anchored him. "You did good," she said, offering him a thermos of coffee. He took it. "You showed up?" "I always do," she said, her smile tugging crookedly. Logan didn't say anything, but when he reached for her hand, she didn't pull away. That evening, they drove out to a quiet hill above Athens. There, beneath the shade of an old sugar maple, rested a freshly carved headstone. James R. Hayes, 1958, 2025. "I tried. In the end, I still loved." Logan stood in silence, Axel at his side, Echo pressed close against his knee. Maddie gave him space but stayed near enough for him to feel her presence. There were no prayers, just a photograph, a faded one, slipped into the edge of the grave. Logan, Micah, and their father at a lake, smiles wide, a puppy cradled in Logan's arms. "I forgave you," Logan whispered, "and I kept my promise." Echo let out a low, contented sound. They left before sunset, not needing to say goodbye. Just thank you. 3 weeks later, Logan stood on the front porch of a small farmhouse just outside town. It had once belonged to Loretta Monroe. The clapboard was old, the porch creaked, but the inside smelled of cedar and fresh paint. Loretta had left him everything. A key taped to the counter with a handwritten note. "This house always needed laughter. I think you, Echo, and Axel might finally bring it back." He'd brought Maddie with him on moving day. She set a box down near the fireplace and looked around. "This house has good bones." "So do we," Logan replied, setting a framed photo of Micah on the mantel. Later, as the fire crackled and night pulled gently over the horizon, Logan sat cross-legged on the rug. Echo rested his head on one boot, tail curled tightly, while Axel stretched nearby, chin propped on a squeaky tennis ball. The room was quiet but warm, familiar. Maddie came and sat beside him, resting her shoulder against his. "Is this home?" she asked. Logan looked down at Echo, then at Axel. Both dogs looked back, eyes full of something ancient and quiet. Devotion, loyalty, love. "Yeah," he said. "Finally." Sometimes God doesn't send angels with wings. He sends them with wet noses, battle scars, and a heartbeat that refuses to give up. He sends them hidden in trash bags, forgotten by the world, but never forgotten by him. Axel and Echo weren't just dogs. They were a message, a whisper in the cold. Hope is still here. You just have to listen. Logan thought he was rescuing 2 broken lives. But it was never about rescue. It was about redemption. About how love, once given freely, finds its way back tenfold. Echo didn't just survive. He shielded a man's soul. Axel didn't just obey commands. He led others to safety. Together, they guarded more than lives. They guarded grace. And maybe, just maybe, the next time you pass a shelter window, or a scarred old dog waiting by the road, or someone who walks a little slower and speaks a little softer, you'll remember this story. You'll remember that miracles don't always fall from the sky. Sometimes. They lie shivering in a cold warehouse, waiting to be heard. Sometimes. They press their head against your chest when grief makes you silent. Sometimes. They wag their tail at your door, asking for nothing but a chance. If this story moved you, please share it. Leave a comment below. Tell us about the animal that saved you or the person who didn't walk away. Hit that subscribe button for more real stories of quiet courage and fierce love. And from our hearts to yours, may God bless you. May He walk beside you in every storm. And may He always send you angels, even if they arrive on 4 paws.